Transits of Neptune and Neptune in the houses of the solar return or lunar return. From Ciro Discepolo's book, The Planetary Symbols. Neptune transiting the first house, or Neptune in the first house of the solar or lunar return. As with all the other houses, this can only happen once in a lifetime. But the following also applies to the period intercepted by this position in a solar return or lunar return. It is very similar to the transit of Neptune in dissonant aspect to the Sun. So read the relevant paragraph. A particularly exclusive aspect of this transit could be excessive use of alcohol or drugs, including Valium or Prozac, coffee, or smoking. Furthermore, for someone so affected, there could be excessive abandonment, notable indolence, excessive laziness, or general obesity. Therefore, beware of all the more banal manifestations of Neptune, but also the more serious ones, such as severe anxiety, depression, phobias, and so on. The best way to exorcise such a transit remains to immerse yourself in a religion, astrology, analytical psychology, parapsychology, esotericism, Orientalism, or one of those disciplines increasingly known as New Age. Make it your mission to proceed with a dagger in your mouth, and you'll see that Neptune will bother you very little. But let it be a healthy fanaticism, such as trying to evangelize the masses on matters of public interest, and without trying to override anyone's opinions. Transiting Neptune in the second house, or Neptune in the second house of solar or lunar return naturally, will ignore those who, under this planetary transit, begin to earn money by selling drugs or similar activities. Instead, will focus on the vast majority of those who, during this transit, but what follows also applies to the period intercepted by this position in a solar return or lunar return, begin to experience anxiety and develop severe phobias for fear of not being able to meet a financial commitment, such as a mortgage. The best way to exorcise this transit is to avoid getting into deep debt and then having to pay off a mortgage. If we absolutely must take out a loan, we should turn to a well-known financial institution or a close relative, parent, brother, brother-in-law, etc., and ignore people of questionable morality who could later turn out to be loan sharks, exactly as the news of recent decades has described them. Furthermore, if we must go into debt, it's advisable to do so to modernize the bathroom, the plumbing, the heating system in the vacation home, the possible purchase of a boat, and so on. We could also begin a deep analysis, and this perhaps the pinnacle of this planetary transit could mean dealing with Neptune traveling in our second house. Lastly, and not least, we could try our hand at set design, or directing a short film, a low-budget feature, or we could try to overcome an atavistic fear of video to accept a television program. Neptune transiting the third house, or Neptune in the third house of the solar or lunar return. For those with relevant references in their birth chart, you must be extremely careful because this planetary transit could mean that you may be the victim of a car accident. Therefore, be extremely careful and, if possible, first remove your motorcycle, Vespa, and so on from the road. Then be extremely careful with your car. This is especially true for those who live in places where there is frequent fog, ice on the ground, or poor visibility in the winter. You should also be extremely careful when traveling by sea, on rivers, or on lakes, and when scuba diving. During this planetary transit, you should take extra care of a brother or sister or in-law and be closer to them psychologically, also making sure that they do not fall victim to drugs or psychotropic medications. During this planetary transit, Your relationships with brothers, sisters, cousins, and in-laws may become fraught with confusion. Be careful, as romantic relationships could arise that could cause you a host of troubles or problems. Also refrain from studying or reading astrology, magic, or esotericism. Neptune transiting the 4th house or Neptune in the 4th house of a solar or lunar return during these years, but the following also applies to the period intercepted by this position in a solar or lunar return. If your natal horoscope warrants it, your home could suffer a flood or explosion due to gas leaks. You may also decide to move and live near the sea or a lake or river. Furthermore, a parent, father or a mother, or even a father or mother-in-law may begin to exhibit psychological problems such as depression, anxiety, phobias, obsessions, and so on. As you can see, these are both events that could be interpreted positively and dramatic and negatively, and only the combination of the birth chart, transits, and solar return of the year can clarify the overall situation. My advice to best harness these energies is certainly to try buying a house by the sea or moving to a house near a body of water. This way you can unload a lot of the energies associated with these symbols without spreading negative symbolism. You can also take better care of your parents without excessive stress, especially by consulting an angiologist or neurologist, or